Hi, my name is Gabriel Bowling, and I'll be interviewing my dad for U.S. history for the interview project. To you, Dad? All right. Now, introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Bowling. I was born May 25th, 1974, in Mooresville, Indiana. I've lived pretty much in Indiana my entire life, and I'm happy to be talking to you today.
Okay. To who were you born from? Who were your parents?
My dad was Les Bowling. He was from the foothills of Kentucky. His family originally in the Appalachian Mountains grew up a coal mine. And my mother is Connie B. is her maiden name. Her married name is Bowling. They were married in 1970, and I was born 4 years later. And that's it.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Do you have any siblings?
I have two sisters. Heather is my youngest. She's 4 years behind me. And my youngest sister is Meredith Bowling. They are both married and each have two kids.
All right. How was your childhood like?
I was very much. I grew up in a small neighborhood down in downtown Indianapolis, where I used to play ball on the street. We stayed out until it got dark, and would basically just do all the things that normal kids do. It was a time that I remember very fondly.
Okay, now let's talk about, actually, how about we talk about your previous jobs? Did you have any previous jobs before your current one?
I started working when I was 14 years old in a machine shop that my grandfather owned. He was actually used to teach at West Point at one point during World War II. He was part of the Army Corps of Engineers. His entire platoon that he was stormed the beaches at Normandy, Omaha Beach to be exact. He is the only member to survive of that, something that he actually regretted quite a bit. He was stationed in St. Louis. Taught me an awful lot about the machine shop and how to do different things. One of the things that he actually did was help to create a mobile machine shop to work on the fields during World War II. They took basically a vehicle and made a machine shop out of it. And one of the things that's very interesting about your grandfather that I thought was pretty neat was he actually, when he was stationed at West Point, I did not know this, but we actually had German prisoners of war on U.S. soil during that time. He actually was in charge during one of his duties to basically guard them, and I thought that was rather interesting. I did that job for about 10 years until I got into college. I went for a degree of geology, and after that I went to work at GameStop, Circuit City. I was working 3 jobs at a particular point in time to basically pay my way through school. Found out I was actually really good with working with the public. And then I've been with Lowe's for 13 years now. I'm currently an assistant store manager with them. So I've definitely enjoyed that, and I've learned that I'm actually fairly good with the public.
Now, can we talk about your family right now?
What do you mean by my family?
Close related family. You know, your wife, children, that sort of stuff.
What do you want to know?
Just who they are.
Okay. My oldest son, Gabriel, was born to us in 2001. He has 2 younger sisters, Michaela and Bren, who are 11 and 9 currently. I married their mother, Bethany Bowling, which her maiden name was Dubzikowski, in 1997. So we've been married 19 years now, and pretty happily. And her family, just to give you a little bit of background on there, were immigrants from Poland and Hungary. Her grandmother and grandfather on her dad's side were from there, and the rest of her family was actually from Arkansas. So,
Okay. Now let's talk about the historic events you've been through.
historic events. Are we talking about ones that I remember, or just things that I've actually experienced?
Ones that you actually experienced would be
Okay.
nice.
Uh,
And
be-
remember.
okay. Being born in 1974, I've lived through 9 presidents, starting with Richard Nixon.
Hold it. Nixon, a man you can trust. Not.
Okay. I don't remember because unfortunately I was a baby at that point. So he was actually only impeached about 5 months after I was born. Some major things that I probably remember. I remember the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan back in the early 80s. I know there are a lot of different things that have happened world history wise during the time that I've actually been alive. So, 1980, I believe that they had the Iranian hostage situation for the embassy in Iran, where they had stormed and taken the hostages, and they were basically held for over a year, and they were released very soon after Reagan took power as president of the United States. I was also, having worked at GameStop in Circus City, I was really big in computers. So I believe that the early 80s also showed the advent of the first portable computers. 1986 was one year that actually stood out to me personally quite a bit for the simple fact that the Challenger exploded. That was something that shaped not only our country, the space program, and various things like that, but it's also something that during that time I was in grade school. I believe I was in the 5th grade, and my science class was actually, with Krista McCullough being on there, being the teacher, we actually had an experiment of some seeds that we were going to grow on that particular STS mission. And so it was something that our school was watching live. And it was one of the first times that I've actually dealt with tragedy on such a global and national scale. So it was something that pretty much shaped a lot of my formative years with that. I remember the Iran-Contra affair during the late 80s, mainly because every time I'd come home, my grandparents would be watching that on TV and what was going on with all of that. So it kind of interrupted the programs that we had going on, but it kind of took that over. Also, in the late 80s, I remember the Berlin Wall coming down. It was either 88 or 89, and that was something that actually formed our formative years as well. When I was in high school, it was kind of dominated a little bit by Bill Clinton and the extramarital affairs that he was having on a lot of different things. And in 2001, a few months after Gabriel was actually born, we suffered probably the greatest tragedy that this nation has ever been in the September 11th attacks. My father-in-law was in town to basically spend a little time with Gabe, and we were sitting around the TV watching the morning news, and all of a sudden the entire tragedy unfolded in front of us. And one of the things that this did is it brought the entire country together during that time. It was something that was incredulous. It was something that we just couldn't believe. It doesn't happen to us. And there were a lot of hurt feelings. There were a lot of anger during this time. And it's something that I think shaped the way in which we had our world politics It changed a lot of things for a lot of people, some good, some bad. We actually, there were a lot of laws that were enacted after that that impeded upon our civil liberties in the name of national security. There were a lot of basically things that were pushed through because of fear. And as I said, some good, some bad, because it also is, it's one of those that may be a part of necessary evil, but is a necessary evil, meaning that we need to listen to everybody's cell phone, watch what they're saying on the internet, invading their civil liberties, which are basically bound and protected by our Constitution. So in 2003, we invaded Iraq, basically on the premise that we went and said, hey, we're going to help out our friends with all of the oil of Kuwait. There were a lot more involved with that than just that. But it seems like that there were a lot of people who benefited financially from this, more so than what we were doing in Kuwait. Didn't seem like it's something for civil liberties. Is more to say, let's make sure Halliburton and business interests are protected. So there were a lot of things that went on, and subsequently, since both instances in which we actually had a police action. So the United States has not been at war since, or declared war since World War II. So rather interesting that we would spend so much money on troops and things like that for a police action. But hey, 2005 was Hurricane Katrina, something that also shaped this country. And one thing that absolutely amazed me about this is we are one of the first countries to come to the aid of those who have suffered a natural disaster. But I'm proud to be an American for the simple fact that we did not ask for or seek out aid during this time. We kind of came together as a country and helped each other out. So one thing that I think separates us from a lot of people around the world is that we are willing, we have good hearts, and are able to do that. So I think that is the majority of all of the major history in which I have lived through. There's a lot more than that I'm sure I've forgotten, but those are the things that kind of shape me.
Thank you, Dad. I think that would be all.